something happens. All right, let's start this off. Cool. So let's look at our agenda for today. I forgot to change the date on it. Let me fix that just so I don't confuse anyone. Cool. Right here. All right, now it should be good. All right, you should be able to see my screen. All right, so today we did a quick check-in. We should be doing an admin interview. I invited Mr. Manzano. I told you guys we're gonna bring a guest speaker. We're gonna do an interview with him, and then using that interview, we're going to write a story about Mr. We'll do a profile on Mr. Manzano and his time as a admin during this time period. What's gonna happen? So that's one thing we're gonna do. We're gonna review chapter 3 and 5. And we'll talk about that after. I invited Mr. Manzano to come in at 1. So depending on what time he comes, that's gonna determine what time we're going to do the review. All right, so we have 2 assignments to do. One's in class and one is outside of class. So the first one I want to set up before Mr. Manzano shows up. If you go to Unit 2, and then you go to week 11, right? So you should see 2 assignments here. What I want you to do is click on this one. It says interview question notes Manzano, right? Click on that. And then like every other assignment we've done, you need to click on this right here, right? So what that should do is make a copy of it for you on yours. So do that, and I want you to have that open so it's ready for when Mr. Manzano gets here. All right, so you're going to open this one, and then I see some people have been able to do it. Refresh it to make sure you guys are opening it. Yeah, some of you guys are opening it, which is cool. It's not showing for me right now, but I'm certain you're doing it. To open that, and the first thing you got to do, it shows me that you pay attention, is erase the name right here and type in your name. So for example, my name is Nelson Top, but you would put obviously your name. So Joshua Padilla. What week it is inside of week 11, week 11. So you type in Joshua Padilla or whatever your name is, right? And so let's say my name was Joshua, and I hate to put you on the spot, Joshua. So what I'll do, and then put in the date for today. So today, and when we do it MLA style, we put the day first. So it's 28. We spell October, and then 2020, right? And then the second thing about MLA is we look at the heading. So I want you to erase where it says last name and then put your own last name, but leave the number. So you shouldn't be deleting the number part. Put Padilla. And what that does is if I go to the second page, you see Padilla too, and that's MLA formatting. Your computer's acting weird. Maybe I'm gonna try to figure it out. We're gonna go a little slow, so you have some time. All right, so first things first, you go to week 11, you download, you make a copy of the assignments, you change it to have your name, your full name. So it says Joshua Padilla, you put your full name, and then on the top part, you erase versus last name and just put your last name and leave the number, and that leaves the heading just fine. All right, so last week when we met up, we did this Padlet thing, right? So if you were here, you saw that a lot of people had very similar questions. So I chose the questions that I think will fit in the same category, and I typed them onto here. So there are 7 questions, no, 8 questions. These are the questions that I'm going to ask Mr. Manzano, right? So actually, let me change the deadline so it's not due right away. So you have until end of the week to finish that. All right, so these are the 7 questions, and these are questions that we came up with as a class, and you can go see it on our Padlet that we did last week. I'm going to ask Mr. Monsanto these questions. As I'm asking him these questions, I want you to fill in his responses, his answers, right? If you feel like you type really slow, maybe write it on a piece of paper first and then go on it. Or you can look at the recording later and see what he said. But the goal of it is to get key information and then maybe write down some quotes that he says. Because remember, we're going to turn what he says into our article, right? We're going to write about what he says. We're going to learn about information given from Mr. Manzano, right? So this is going to be first-hand information. So the questions that we're going to ask are: one, what was the reason for the block schedule, and will that remain? Um, Two, how will school change once students are able to return? Three, if school does resume in the future, do you think students will be given the option to opt out? Four, will students still be given school computers in the future? How do you see that affecting education? Five, what do you think has been the social and psychological effects of social distancing? So a lot of people have talked about stress and the effects of it. That's what we want to get to. Six, what have you noticed about school attendance and grades during distance learning? Seven, has your job changed because of COVID? How does it feel to be an administrator during this time period? And eight, what advice do you have for students? So these are the 8 questions I'm going to ask Mr. Monsanto when we get here. And what your job is to take notes. Once again, if you're a slow typer, I would recommend writing on paper.
Mister.
Yeah,
Well, I texted in the chat. Can we ask questions we have about the moment? Like, say we have a question, like just randomly came up.
yeah. So definitely. So that's always good. We talked about this last week when we do interviews. As there people are talking, feel free to we develop questions, right? So, but if you do add questions, I want you to keep track of them. So like take notes on it too.
So, do I write them like on my page, or do I ask them, or like how is this gonna work? Do I text you the question, you ask them, or?
No, no. I'll just say, does any student have any questions from?
Okay, got it.
But these 8 questions, that's what everyone's going to be responsible for. If you want to make your story a little more unique, then you can ask them more questions. But this goes out to all students in the class. You're going to be responsible for taking notes on these 8 questions when we ask them. So I want you to leave this document open. He should be, unless he messaged me right now and tells me he can't make it. But he should come here about 1 o'clock, maybe a little before that. So far, I think we're good. All right, so leave that open and I'll go over our other assignment. So that's an in-class assignment that we're going to do together. And then go to our homework assignment, interview analysis, presidential candidates. So you click on that. And then Tyson actually brought up a good segue, good transition to this. We're going to look at the presidential candidates. So recently, or every election cycle, 60 Minutes, which is a news show on channel 2, I forgot, but they interview each presidential candidate. So you see video 1 and video 2, you should see a link to an interview to Donald Trump, and you should see an interview link to um, uh, Vice President Joe Biden. It's 20 minutes each, right? So it sounds like a lot of time, but this is probably the most important thing in your current lifetimes that's going to happen. So I do want you to at least know the candidates. I mean, we know generally about them. We know their characters a little bit. We all have very similar distaste for some of them. But what I want you to do is watch both videos and answer these two questions in paragraph form, right? So not bullet points when you answer, it's actual paragraphs. And paragraphs to me, it means 7 to 8 sentences. All right, in the first, and you answer it in the comments. After you finish watching these two, right, you can answer these 4 questions. What type of questions did the interview ask the candidates? So keep in mind, what we're paying attention to as journalists is how the interviewers, the journalists are handling the situation. Uh, oh, so someone had questions for me. Do we write the answers like notes or in the sentences? Um, so I'm guessing you're talking about the interview. You're gonna write it like notes. So you might do bullet points. You might do. You're trying to get the key information, but the key thing though is get the key information and try to keep track of, like, you hear him say something interesting. Try to write some exact quotes, because then when we do articles, you want to have actually quote the people and use what he says as information. All right, going back to this one. Um, Paragraph 1, what type of questions did the interviewers ask? So how did they approach the subject? This is a very question. So they are asking questions from both sides, Republican and Democrats, of Trump and of Biden. Do you think the interviewers were fair to both candidates and their vice presidents? All right, when I say fair, do they ask them equally tough and easy questions? Are they being balanced? What that means is when they ask one question to one side, are they asking similar questions to the other side? Um, Being fair is providing them with the same circumstances and same questioning. So after watching both interviews, do you think it was fair? And I will warn you, in video one, Trump being Trump, he does walk out of the interview. He leaves like 10 minutes into it because he gets really mad. But he in the first like 7 minutes he accuses the interviewer, you're not being fair to me. Are you asking Biden these questions? And I want you to put on your journalist lens and decide, what were they being fair? Do you think the questions that I forgot the interviewer's name, do you think the questions she was asking to Trump, was appropriate? Was it fair? And you have to make that. That's the way to answer a question. Do you think it was a question that a president should be able to answer? Number 3, what questions did you like from the interviewers? So the way they look at the way they interviewed, and also what questions should they have went deeper on? Meaning, did they ask a question but they let the person off the hook? And what I mean by that is sometimes you want them to push a little harder, because the key thing about journalism is not to be nice. I mean, you want to be civil, but our job is to find the facts, to find the truth, to find what's actually happening. So what questions did you respect from what they're saying, and what questions should they have pushed a little harder, right? Not the softball questions. And then the last question from paragraph 1 is, what did you think of the fact checking provided by the program? So unlike the debates and when people are giving speeches, as the candidates are talking, the interview stops, not actually, but the broadcast stops and shows you like, oh, nope, in fact, they fact check them. They say if they're wrong or right. What did you think about that? Do you think it was helpful? Do you think that it's, I don't know, what was your opinion on it? And then the second question for paragraph 2 is, if you were interviewing Trump and Biden, what questions would you ask and why? How would you handle the interviews? What would you make a difference? If you were hosting a show, if Salvador Mendoza show, or a LeBron Valdivia, or Tyson show, or a Justin Ramirez show, right? How would you handle the interview? How would you make it different? So this is your homework for the week. Let me go back to week 10. All right, so for week 10, what you needed to do, and we did half of it together, is an online outline. So make sure you get that done. Let me double check who submitted it. Some of you submitted it. Yeah, so someone says, for Trump, my anger issues will be acting up. Keep in mind, as journalists, we got to do our best to, even if we disagree with the person, even if they make us angry, we gotta do our best to remain neutral, to be objective. All right. So some people turned in, not everyone. We see some stuff. Yeah, it looks good. So next week, I said we're gonna do it this week, but then we're not gonna have enough time to go over all of the notes for chapter 3 and 5. So what you need to do is just submit the outlines for chapter 3 and chapter 5. Next week, I'm going to go over both PowerPoints, and then we're going to have a quiz during class. So I'm going to open the quiz next week during class, and you need to be here to take it, and you're going to answer it after. But we're going to postpone that. So I'm giving you an extra week. Do the chapter 5 outline if you haven't already. Let's see. Okay. Let me message Mr. Manzano and have this ready for yourself. All right. Um, Once again, you can do bullet points. So the way you do bullet points is you click on this and those bullet points, or you can just type information. But the key thing is you keep track of key facts and then save quotes. At the end of the session, I'm going to open up it to everyone if you want to ask additional questions. And as you are doing that, and as we're waiting, I'm going to take roll. Mr. Manzano just messaged me. He'll be on in a few minutes, so I guess we'll wait. All right, once again, we're still waiting a little bit. It'll probably be in like 2 minutes. So if you need to go restroom or anything, perfect time. Uh, Good afternoon, Mr. Manzano. I don't see you. Oh, there you go. Hey,
Good afternoon, everyone.
good afternoon. Tell us, where you at right now? Is that a fake picture of school or a real picture of school?
No, it's a picture uh, that I found and I put it on there as my background.
Yeah, it
But
looks
I'm,
good.
I'm, I'm here in the new bungalow.
Oh,
We
really?
are we are sitting in the new bungalow, working out of here. But
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. As I mentioned, this is the first year we split up the classes, but this is the intro to journalism class. The object of our class, outside of different than Spartan Shield, is these people individuals are learning how to be journalists, right? So their main goal, either as an elective or as a future career, is to learn the skills to be a journalist. During this time period, it's hard for them to go out and actually interview people. So we are glad that we have kind individuals like yourself that want to spare us a few moments to allow us to interview you.
absolutely. And
Last week, students got together in class. One of their assignments was to create questions for this interview. So I'm going to ask you 8 questions that they came up with as a class. And our focus is generally, from what I've seen, is about school and school, how's school going to look, and, during COVID and after this is all over.
got it. No
Yeah.
problem. And before we start, thank you yeah, for having me. I know the uh, school is not like we would like it to be, uh, and I know one of the things that we keep bringing up is likely we won't get back to what it used to be, but we definitely uh, are following guidelines, and depending on what the district says on how to return, then we'll go from there. Um, but thank you once again. And also, Mr. Top, Chelsea's not in this class, correct?
No, no, she's in the journalism too.
Okay, so tell her I know I've been emailing back and forth with her. So
Yeah. So she's for students right now, they're most likely going to write an article for a homework assignment.
okay,
If it's good, then we might publish it. But typically, if Chelsea's working on the ones for the website.
got it. Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll get started in a second. We have 8 questions that we prepared for you, and that ends. I told students that they are able to ask you questions if they have any after that.
Absolutely.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Oh, also, we're recording this just in case we have about 10 students that are absent today, or if students want to go back to look at the interview to answer the questions, they have option to.
Got it.
All right, question number one. Uh, this refers to block schedule. What was the reason for the change to block schedule? And will that remain once we return to school?
So I know that there were many factors that uh, were taken into account in terms of going to block schedule. In the end, that ends up being a proposal. The staff as a whole needs to vote on it in order for it to be approved. But I think it looks from what the most high schools are doing 7 or 8 periods. So we felt that at Huntington Park High School, sometimes our students were at a disadvantage to take electives or to have opportunities to take more classes, or if they fell behind in order to make up those classes, now they had more opportunities in their schedule to take an extra class. Um, Obviously, when that decision was made, distance learning wasn't taken into account, and we know that right now it ends up being 2 extra classes that students have. So it does add a little bit more stress. Um, so I know that that was taken into account. So it was particularly 2 reasons. One of them was to give students more opportunities to take electives and opportunities for students to make up classes if they need it. And that will benefit students that are struggling and students that are ahead, because students that are ahead now have more opportunities to take electives. For example, this year we had opportunities to open up an extra journalism class, and that was because of the block, which before we would not have that opportunity to have this class that you're sitting in, or for example, speech, or literature for minorities that Dr. Parker's teaching, or and those are just a few of several electives that now students have the opportunity to take.
Yeah, definitely. Great. So you touched on a lot of things about academics and how it's improved for students to take electives and give them more opportunities to pass classes. Uh, Number two was, all right, we got to imagine the future, right? We're able to uh, to to get past the initial stages of what's happening right now with COVID. How do you think school would change once students are able to return? What procedures? What safety concerns? What how things the classroom look?
So it's very difficult to predict what things will look like. I know there's talks about vaccines. There's talks about procedures. I know hybrid is definitely something that keeps uh, being mentioned. So, and when I said that school will not be like it used to be, uh, give me a minute. Mr. Garibaldi's calling, so I guess he wanted uh, talk. Can you email him the link?
Yeah, I'll send it to them right now.
Okay, let me just let him know.
Manzano, are you muted? Oh, you're talking to the phone right now. Oh, never mind.
So
Mr.
he
Todd, did you
might
already
he
ask
may
him?
or may not show up, Todd. So if you want to send him the link, um,
Yeah,
so
I just sent them the link.
got it. So as I was mentioning, I know that there's talks about possibly grades, different grades coming in on different days. As it is now, it looks like based on guidelines, we did take a look at the classrooms. Classrooms should be from about 10 to 13 students, depending on the size of the classroom, that students will be able to be in the class. So it does. So those are some of the measures that that we're preparing for. Uh, we do have to follow the district guidelines, but at the moment we don't have um, any more clearance or guidance on how to move forward. And I'm sure once a date is determined to start or come back, then there'll be more guidance from the district, which the district has to follow the guidelines from the health department and whatnot. So it becomes a trickle down effect.
Hey, Mr. Principal Garibaldi, welcome to our class. This is just I introduced it earlier when Mr. Manzano came in. This is Journalism 1. So these are beginning journalists. They're just learning the basics of journalism. And unlike past years where we're able to send kids out to the field, we're limited on the amount of people we get to see. So we appreciate you and Mr. Manzano taking the time to join our class so they can, conduct an interview and also take notes on the process and write a story on it eventually.
Sounds good. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Just listened to had a very good conversation with a journalist yesterday. I know that he's worked with our school before, Beto Duran. He's now working with Channel 2 and Channel 9 News. He was covering the World Series, works for The Zone. And our conversation was about the heat that a lot of journalists are taking right now because they're not being accurate with what is happening, and so people are questioning the validity of a lot of journalists because of incorrect information or one-sided information or whatever it is. It was a good conversation, and he says that this fake news and all that stuff is really having an impact on journalism. And it was a great interview with what's his name? Denzel Washington. And he in his interview he said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed. And that was powerful. That was powerful. And I think journalists are being held very accountable now because of the situation we're in. It's messy, and through it, we're definitely going to need to rely on journalists for the truth as best we can. That's it from me, Mr. Kyle.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very important topic. Last week we discussed how social media and the rise of it has really shifted our views. Okay, as a reminder to the students, remember we have outline of questions, and so as we ask the questions and as Mr. Manzano and Garibaldi are answering it, please make sure you're taking notes because remember you're going to be responsible for writing an article on it next week, right? So your goal is to keep track of the notes this week. We're practicing good note taking during this interview. All right, going back, we are focused on students. They came with the questions, and their focus was a lot on school and COVID and whatnot, right? So the third question we're on right now is if school does resume in person in the future, do you think students will be given the option to opt out if they don't feel safe?
I'm sorry, for whatever reason, I didn't catch that. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, definitely. So if school resumes in-person classes in the future, will students be given the opportunity to opt out of in-person classes?
At this point in time, I don't know. I know that there's surveys that have been sent to the community, parents, students, and staff, and those questions are on there, where the district is gathering data on that to see where the community stands, but I do not know they will be given an option.
Right. And I know that surrounding districts in different areas that have returned to school, uh, and I can't say all, but I know many that I'm familiar with, did give the parents and students the option to stay home if they felt that was something that they wanted to do instead of coming to in-person classes. So, but again, like Mr. Garibaldi mentioned, we haven't got guidance or what that would look like, or even if it was going to be an option.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely a lot of uncertainty right now. Question number 4, students, you should be on that one. They wanted to know, will students still be given school computers in the future? So they noticed a change where all students that requested were given Chromebooks and even some hotspots. How do you see this affecting education?
Yeah. So go ahead, Garibaldi.
No, go ahead, Manzano. Thank you.
Yeah. So I know that technology has become a big part of education. In fact, uh, most, if not all, the assignments are currently, even before the pandemic, many were already being submitted. We use Schoology, so which is technology based, to submit assignments. As a school, our goal has been to be a one-to-one, and that means a computer to every student, as as a as an educational tool to have to enhance student learning. So we do find the importance. If there's something positive that's coming out of the pandemic, is also the use of technology, and now that we can learn and do assignments, submit assignments, and it's almost also preparation for colleges and universities, which we're doing a lot of online learning. So I guess to answer the question, we do find the importance to have a computer for every student. Is something that we had already planned, and we were trying to get there as a goal. We came close a few times, but then as we get technology, some becomes obsolete, or some now it has to go under repair. So it was always hard to catch up, but we do find the importance of it. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Mr. Garibaldi.
I think you said it well. You don't just order the technology, you also need people to manage it. Imagine 1,500 devices out there. Who's going to keep inventory, distribute, maintenance? It's a lot of work. And so sometimes we get money to pay for some technology, but the money doesn't come with to pay for another person to work with it. So we add that to people's work. You know, one of my assistant principals, Mr. Alfaro, he spends a lot of time on technology, and you know, that's not even his main part of his work, and it eats up his day. So, you know, it's not just technology. And then, like Mr. Manzano said, you got to keep buying newer stuff all the time. Yeah. Some schools have invested in devices like laptops for their kids, and that's been a big issue. Chromebooks is probably the thing that everyone goes to. Um, and the reason why is devices are prone to viruses. And so a lot of Chromebooks really don't get viruses as much as other devices do. So that's one reason why it's a preference item.
Thank you. Students, I'm going to go to question 6 first and then go back to question 5, just so be aware of that. All right. So what have you guys noticed in regards to school attendance and grades during distance learning?
Well, Mr. Manzano's over attendance. You want to jump into that one, Mr. Manzano?
So one of our challenges, I do want to say that attendance is one thing, and then student participation in class is another thing, right? I think there are some students that are logging on, they're marked present, but are not keeping up or doing many of the assignments. So I think those are two different things. So in terms of attendance, we as a school have identified about 80 students that are not logging on to classes at all, right? And we know those students. We have made we have attempted to reach out to families, get them engaged, connected. Numbers are not working, but those students haven't checked into any other school. So therefore, they're still our students. We've made attempts to do home visits. Many of us are still here on campus working. We wanted to do home visits, but we're not allowed under guidelines right now to do those, just to check up on those students and those families. So, but we also have noticed that there has been an increase in, I think the second part of the question was grades, correct?
Yes, grades.
So we have noticed that there are students that are struggling. There's been an increase in students with D's and F's. I know that that's something that we have discussed with our teachers. We have a task force on our campus with the counselors. It's called the A through G task force, where we look at the data, and it's definitely something that we know we need to work on. So we've taken some steps. I know there's tutoring available. There's many teachers are working past their normal hours to work and help students. So, but we know that those are two areas that are a concern.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Mr. Manzano said about the attendance, attendance is very strongly related with the grades. But also one of the things that teachers are reporting is that, students are not completing the assignments. And so what we have here at Huntington Park is called mastery learning and grading. When we went to school, Mr. Manzano and I, way back when, there was a grading scale, and you got points for assignments, and you got points for raising your hand and talking in class, and you got points for, and so that necessarily wasn't objective, and it was different from teacher to teacher. In one teacher's class, as long as you did your homework, you passed the class. In another teacher's class, the tests were met everything. Now it's the standards. There's a list of required learning for every course you take. And so now teachers at Huntington Park are trained on how to grade you based on those standards. Now, if students only turn in one assignment, it's hard to grade that student on that one assignment. Teachers have been instructed to provide opportunities for kids to make up work, but then students get so far behind in making up work that it becomes too much for some to manage. So there is an increase in D's and F's. We've been working with our counselors, sharing that with teachers, and we all have to work together on this. I have a daughter at home, and she's a 9th grader, a freshman in high school. She does 4 to 5 hours of homework every night, every day. And on weekends, about 4 or 5 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday. I believe it's too much homework. And I know we've shared that with the staff here to just try to maximize the synchronous minutes with the students and minimize the asynchronous as best they can without compromising what's essential learning for that class. But this is not just something unique to Huntington Park. It's happening across the country. It's a challenge.
All right, so in regards to like social distancing, thank you for answering the academics and the attendance part. Kids are kind of curious about I know this is not your field, but the social and psychological effects that might be happening with students regards to this. What do you guys think will be the long-term or short-term effects of social distancing on their social skills and their psychological?
Well, I'm glad you bring that up. I think that nothing can replace face-to-face contact or even communication. Even right now, I challenge this journalism class to turn on your cameras and to engage. Right now, I'm talking to Mr. Ta, asking the questions, but you have opportunities to talk, and sometimes we don't take them. Even us as adults, as a staff, we remind each other, cameras on, when we have our meetings, and we make our teachers work together. Yesterday, we put them in groups so that they can work together on something. So there are things that we can do to mitigate some of the effects of isolation, some of the effects that isolation may have. And so for me, I don't know what the long-term effects are, but short-term, it's one of the things we're addressing with the staff. We're calling it student engagement. And how can we, for the few minutes we have students during the class, how can we engage them more? And the teachers are sharing with us that a lot of students are resistant to turning on their cameras. Okay, fine. If you can't, I step away to the restroom, I turn off my camera. But for those few instances, how do we understand that this may be a reality for a while? And you may have to do a job interview through this Zoom. You may have to work with a doctor or someone on a project with this. And so turning on the camera and starting to engage is something we all have to meet in the middle on. We interviewed someone for a job here at Huntington Park High School, and they did not want to turn on their camera. This was a job interview. They didn't want to turn on their camera. And that was something that weighed heavily on our decision to hire the person. So I don't know what the short-term and long-term effects are. I just know we're trying to do something about it. And as a school, we're focusing on more engagement. And I challenge people, shouldn't even be a challenge to turn on your cameras. Imagine if I didn't turn on my camera right now and I was talking to you guys. What would you guys think? And why is it any different for our students then? Mr. Manzano, our administrators, Mr. Tao, we meet and we encourage that. It's a way of engaging. So take advantage of the opportunities you have to engage. And if you don't have those, create them and be part of something for now. Manzano, anything you might add?
Yeah, and I think we are faced with challenging times. Many of our staff has gone out to trainings. Many are on distance learning and how to deal with students and adults that are having a difficult time with the pandemic. Within all of this, we've had deaths due to COVID, or people impacted due to COVID, and or impacts from COVID, such as losing your job or layoffs or your home. So these are a lot of things that we understand are difficult situations. So I think the question was also around social emotional, and so we definitely want to be there for our students. So our counselors are also there. I know that they get bombarded with emails, but feel free to reach out to the school support staff. There's also office hours for all staff. If anyone needs to talk to someone or has an issue, you could always go to the website, go to the office hours, and communicate with the staff. But I think it's very different than when we are in school, right? When we're in school, you could go to an office, you could go to Mr. Ta's room and say, Mr. Ta, I got to have a problem. I want to talk. In this situation, sometimes it's an email. You send out an email and you're hoping to get a response, or you're waiting for a response, and it might be a day or two. By then your problem is fixed, or you already got over your situation. So we understand it's challenging times, but feel free to reach out to people. And sometimes if you don't get a hold of someone, there's different emails. You could email different people for support. We also have a PSW, Mr. Orellana, who and Ms. Alcaraz, that many of you guys probably have interacted with or know, and they are social workers that work at a school. So their title is school based, but they really do that type of work. So you could also they're here for more tier 2, tier 3 support.
Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely, because we have a mixture of in this class, freshmen who've never, this is their first experience of high school, and we have a lot of seniors here too. So it's like a interesting mix of personalities. let's go. We have two more questions, and then I'm open up to the students if you guys have time. Number 7 is, how has your job changed because of COVID, and how does it feel to be an administrator during this time period?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I got to tell you guys that I'm very fortunate to work with the people I work with here at Huntington Park High School. From our buildings and grounds workers, you guys, those guys are heroes. My administrative team, Mr. Alfaro, Mr. Lara, Manzano, and Ms. Lombarski, one of our new administrators, our office staff, our TAs, people are here making sure that devices are available, books are available, records are being kept, payrolls being done. We're still in the middle of modernization. And so the way it's changed is that I go home to a family at the end of the day. I have a kindergarten daughter, I have a freshman daughter, my wife, my mom and dad are very old, and my mom comes to help with my kindergarten. And if I get sick, they get sick. And so my job has changed in the fact that I realize I'm sacrificing a lot. And the people that are here are sacrificing a lot. Have there been days, we had a few COVID cases here at the school with people who work here a couple of months ago. We're good now, but that makes you think and wonder. And so, as the principal, hey, if people are coming here, I will be here working with them, trying to keep this place as safe as possible, keep the work going, keep the learning going and growing. But it has changed in that way that I don't know if people realize how much the staff that's here is putting themselves, the sacrifices they're making. Every day we get sprayed down. Twice a day they spray down, they spray down the public places. They wipe down the doorknobs. We all wear masks. I'm not wearing masks right now because I'm in my office and I have the door closed. But as soon as someone comes in, I put my mask on. It's a little different. Manzano, anything you would add?
And it's definitely been an adjustment. Most of the interaction with us is through Zoom, so we have to either meet on Zoom and have meetings on Zoom, and ironically speaking, it's a lot more. It's really tiring. It's exhausting to be in front of a computer and whatnot. I think yeah, definitely walking around campus, it's empty. The main building right now is getting ready to for modernization, so it's cleared out and it's empty, but it miss the students, miss interacting with the teachers. I feel, even though I'm over different departments, and the relationships I built with my staff and the teachers, I feel like I'm not connecting with teachers enough, and it's hard through Zoom. It's hard because in the limited time we want to connect with everyone, and it's difficult. So, but a lot of it is through phone calls now as well. Paperwork is signed digitally, and off it goes, and here it comes, and so it's been adjustments. I think also I think we're all getting better a little bit better at technology. I always say students are way ahead of the game in terms of technology. You guys are probably like, oh, you can't do that, mister. Let me show you, right? And because I know many students are very tech savvy, so some of us are trying to keep up and learn in the process.
Yeah, definitely. Going back to what Mr. Garibaldi say, we gotta find ways to keep our family safe. And it takes a lot of effort for me not to go down to Figueroa after the Lakers and Dodgers won. So we gotta change the way we do things. Final question before I open up to students is, what advice do you have for students during this time? What would you want to say to them?
Yeah. The only thing I would say is continue to maintain and stay connected with one another's. Stay positive. It's really easy to just throw up your hands and say, for what? I'm not gonna do this, or we're not even gonna have a prom, or we're not gonna do this, and start coming up with reasons not to. But the way I look at it on a positive sense is if you do well through distance learning and you learn to learn in this manner, then that transition to colleges or universities, trainings, or whatever route you want to take, it's going to transfer over because likely that's going to be the way of learning on their end as well. So whatever you the way those skills, those habits that you're learning now will transfer over. So I know it's different, it's not the same, but stay positive and stay and stay active, I would say. Go out, enjoy those moments, enjoy the sun. Today's a sunny day. I look out the window and it's nice out there. So just take some time to just reflect on the positives and not just focus on the negatives, what we don't have, or what's currently going on negatively. I'm sorry.
Sorry, adding on to what Mr. Manzano said, the question is like, what recommendations will we give to you guys in this situation? Um, Look, this will pass eventually. And you don't
You're
want
muted,
this
Garibaldi.
situation and
You're
how you
muted.
responded to it to define the rest of your life. What you do now has an impact on you later on in life. And some people are acting as if, you know, this, whatever they do during this time is not going to have an impact on them 10 years from now. Um, with the amount of, if you want to get a scholarship, then why should that change right now? If you want to get into a university, why should it change right now? And that's where I give you that um, tip or recommendation is to keep on working, keep on dreaming, and keep on doing. Don't stop. This is going to pass. Um, yeah, it can be a little challenging, but this too shall pass.
Okay, I think you're. I don't know for. I heard you the whole time, Simontano, but a lot of people reported that the sound cut it out. But I recorded it, and it should be fine if students want to review it. I don't know how much time you guys have left. Would you be able to answer some student questions?
I'll make the time for our students and for you, Mr. Tom.
Okay, so let's go to the first one. Brian's been asking to ask that. Brian Valdivia from. Would you introduce yourself, Brian, and then ask your question?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mr. Garibaldi remembers me. If not, I was in leadership last year. My name is Brian Valdivia. Obviously, I'm a senior. I had a question about graduation. It said my question is, what will be happening for graduation for the students? Will it be the same as last year, or will it be a choice to have a proper safe one?
Yeah.
Non-digitally.
How you doing, Brian? I miss you.
Yeah, thank you, Mister.
Um, so last year we were the only school in Huntington Park that had a graduation. No other school in our community of schools had a graduation. Um, we didn't have to. We didn't have to do it. And we went through a lot of work. Mr. Alfaro was over the graduation. Let me just share with you guys. The night before the graduation, he was here till about 10 o'clock. We were still getting things ready. There was a person, a staff member here who their father had died, and the funeral was the next day, and they were here till 10 o'clock working. There was office staff, everyone working to do it. And some people started wondering, like, why did we do this? Why did we take on this thing? And we did it for our students. We did it because we care about you guys. Even then, there were people complaining that this was this way, that this was that way. I read some of the stuff, that people were posting, and I thought to myself, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what people say. We did it because we wanted to do it for our students. This year, I don't know how it's going to work out. People told us you should do this, you should do that. Remember, we fall under the guidelines of CDC and the LA County Health Department. And there was no way we could do the graduation last year if it wasn't for the support of HPPD, City Hall, and the council members, and some of our staff here at HP who worked really hard and long hours to get it done. The CDC guidelines said we could not use the school property. So we did everything on the street, and the City Hall and HPPD, they blocked the streets, they got permits, they did everything to help us get it done. So I'm very thankful for them. There were some people who were, saying like F the police and why are they here? Well, they're the ones who we can't go out on the street and do that stuff. It's not something, it's against the law for us to do it. It's not even in our capacity. So moving forward this year, we're waiting to hear what are the things we can and cannot do. And then we're going to try our best. We're going to try our best just like we did last year, and we will need your support along the way. There were students who complained that their picture didn't look good on the slides. Well, that's the picture they gave us. I'm not lying. There were some pictures where you could see the toilet in the background. And so we called them, and they turned in pictures late, a week late, some of them. It just made it harder. So we're going to need you guys. We're going to need to work together on whatever we do to make it the best we can. Okay. I did have one parent who reached out to me, and he said, look, Mr. Garibaldi, I'm so thankful for what you did for our kids and my daughter. He said his rest of his family, they go to Glendora High School, and they didn't do anything over there. And that his daughter had the opportunity of having a great graduation. And for those of you who followed us on Instagram, and I know Tal was there filming it, it was cool. It was cool. Anything else you'd add, Manzano?
I think you got it all, Garibaldi.
Yeah, definitely. And for the students that were able to see it, I actually liked it better than normal graduation. It was one of the few times where you have your family like 5 feet away from you when you're getting your diploma. Okay, so let's go to, I think we have two students that volunteered to ask questions. Areli Vega, did you want to ask your question? And if you do, we ask you to turn your camera on. Areli, are you there? No, never mind. Are you sure?
Come on, Arela.
Come on, you got this. Okay. We'll come back to, I'll let you think about it. The other person was Giovanni Rios.
Yes, I have a question, but it's actually getting more information for question number 6.
Mr. Rios.
So, so you said that the increase of students, that there had been an increase with students getting D's and F. What kind of percentage would you say it would be specifically?
I would say that, and we sent messages to all the families that got 1 D or 1 F, or those that got 2 or more D's or F's. I would say there's maybe like I don't have the exact numbers, but it's at least a 15 to 20% increase. Yeah, and once again, the main reason that teachers are explaining is that there's just no work turned in. They said, Mr. Garibaldi, if I have one assignment, I'll try to base my grade on that, but sometimes I don't even have one, or I have one and that's it for the first 10 weeks. And so, I think the increase is about 20%. And once again, that's a ballpark estimate.
All right, hopefully
We do have a tutoring program, I'm sorry, We do have a tutoring program. It started from the very beginning. We have students that peer tutor each other, and we have Ms. Viramontes and Ms. Herrera who are coordinating that. And we just added another tutoring program where I think there's like 6 teachers working with kids every day, and it's 8 to 12 kids that they'll work with every day. So messages were sent to all those students who got D's and F's to join that tutoring program. Yeah, sometimes with the peer tutoring one, people aren't showing up. So yeah.
I do have another question. It's more of like,
I'm sorry, bro. There's actually we have other people waiting too.
oh, sorry, what happened?
We have other people waiting to ask a question. So I'm
Oh, they are? Oh, okay.
And then if we have time, we'll go back to you. Sorry. All right. Our next person is regarding is going to come from Brian Boland. Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Mister. Um,
Mr. Bowling.
how do you feel about sports coming back?
I'll have Manzano tackle that one. He's over athletics this year.
Yeah, we received a date for outdoor workouts, which initially was supposed to be next week. The district said they were going to send out more information, and at this point, there's no information that has come in. I'm definitely torn. If you want this is my personal take on it. I'm definitely torn between it because I understand we want to make sure that all students are safe and everyone's safe, and we support also the community with the spread of COVID. But we also know that students and student athletes want to get out there, right? So at this point, regardless of how we feel or what's our take, whether we want sports back or we don't want sports back or whatnot, it's really up to the district what we can and cannot do. So we're definitely waiting. We're preparing whatever measures or information has been sent. We started working on creating safe areas out in the field and creating places for students to work out. We're starting to clean it up. The softball field has been cleaned up or whatnot. We're doing what we can as a school to get ready, but we're going to wait and have to wait for district approval and district guidelines. So I know athletes are waiting to get out there. I know particularly the seniors want to get out there. See Bolin with that, he looks eager to be out there, but we have to wait on the district.
I would add on to what Mr. Manzano said, that it almost doesn't matter what we feel or think about it, because we're not the ones making the decision. We are following all the guidelines from LA County Health Department, which is working closely with CDC and CDE, the California Department of Education. So all these decisions are made above us, right? And so for me, I miss it. Just last night, I was watching videos of events we've had at the school, athletic events, plays, and I miss it. My daughter's in 9th grade, and she's been having the same experience you guys have at her high school. So I want to get this show back on the road, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we're responsible in what we do, and we don't make the situation that's not good even worse. I will share with you that there have been students at Huntington Park High School who have lost a father, who have lost an uncle, who have lost people to this virus, and some as recent as last week. And so those are the stories that don't go told much out there. And there are families that are being impacted. And I do carry that on my conscience as something that I will do everything to make sure that we limit the spread of this virus as best we can. And so For me, I would love for it to happen, but we've got to be responsible and thoughtful with our next steps whenever we're given the green light to take on next steps.
All right. Hopefully
Thank
answer your
you.
question, Brian. I want to respect your time, so we just have one more question. I know, Brian, you want to add another one. Brian Valdivia had another one, but we had the limits because we have one more student. Our last question today is coming from Tyson. Tyson, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, go ahead.
So, this question is for both of you. And how would you suggest teachers interact with their students now? And, not only concerning the virus, but everything that's going on. Personally, I feel like no one's really talking about anything. We're not talking about the events that are going on right now. We're not talking about the virus with our students. And I feel like it's important that, you know, we get input from everyone because that's just a part of learning. And I feel like that's the part that's missing and why a lot of teachers and students are disconnected with each other.
Yeah, I
So
think
how
that's,
would you
how would I what? What was that? Or how would we what?
how, what would you suggest teachers do to interact with their students?
So first and foremost, the advisories were set up to do what you're saying. The advisories, there's a reason why they split up the advisories and every teacher has to teach two separate advisories because they wanted the groups to be smaller and they wanted to have better student communication and engagement. Through the advisories, there's lessons that have been developed where teachers, and there's things that have been added, of course. Sometimes teachers will add naviance in there, of course, the announcements and stuff like that. But that is the space where teachers are supposed to connect with students. Um, I think also it's a challenge for teachers because there's a lot of questions that we do not have answers to. A lot, and it makes us seem like poor leaders. Information doesn't make you a good leader, but in times like this, people want certainty, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. So, I have parents call me and say, when are our kids coming back? I don't know. When is athletics going to start? I don't know. Are we going to have a regular graduation? I don't know. Are we going to have a prom? I don't know, and so forth. And so people get frustrated with that uncertainty and they get frustrated with people who give those responses. And so some teachers, I felt, because they don't have these answers, they just stay away from the topic. It's a challenge for everyone. I don't know if you would add anything to that, Mr. Manzano.
Oh, but we do hear you, Tyson. I think one of the things that we've also talked to our teachers, and we shared, videos or situations of students needing help or displaying frustration. I think when we started the year, we shared a video of what some of our students are going through, just so and we just shared it recently with the counselors, so they could see that when a student is trying to reach out to them, it's because there's this need. And I think I said it earlier, it's not like knocking on a door or going to an office and saying, hey, I need help, or here I am. But I think we do want, we're encouraging our teachers to do a lot of engagement, that classes last the whole time. There's things that students don't, that may not be aware of in terms of the contract. For example, teachers must be with their class at least 60 minutes, and anything after that, they can do asynchronous assignments. But what we've talked to our teachers is try to use the whole time to stay connected with students, talk to students, have students do the assignments during that time. So that way there's that connection. And interestingly speaking, I jumped into Mr. Taw's class earlier, and Mr. Taw's class was talking about some difficult and sensitive issues, not shying away from reality, not shying away from what's really out there. And I think that's what you're mentioning, Tyson, that, you should be having these conversations about some of these issues. So, definitely heard. And we'll take some of this back also with some of our teachers.
Absolutely. And I think Tyson, what you're bringing up is politically, there's a lot of things going on, and sometimes you don't know what to believe. And we're on the same page with a lot of our students. Mr. Manzano and I talk about this a lot. Like, that's why I started off with the journalism earlier. What do you believe? You get stuff on your Instagram post or feed, your whatever feed you get. You read the newspaper, and there's so many stories that are conflicting. Some people saying COVID's getting better, some people saying it's getting worse. Politicians are spinning it this way and that way. There's civil unrest, there's racial problems in this country. And so I think, Tyson, what you're saying is, like, where do we engage around these conversations? And some of it is definitely during that advisory, but you can suggest it to your teacher. Hey, look, this is heavy on our minds as a group of students. We'll take it back, like Mr. Manzano said. You have your counselors you can reach out to. You have us you can reach out to. I know I had a few students the other day that came in, and all four of us outside the gate, we had a good conversation. And we're all feeling a little how could you say, like this is, in my lifetime, I've never lived through something like this. Mr. Manzano, I don't know if you agree.
Absolutely.
I've never lived through anything like this. And so we're all figuring it out, including your teachers and our staff. We have office hours on Monday. You can send an email to any teacher or staff member. We try to follow up with it as best we can. And we're here for you guys. And if you guys want to have a chat one day, hey, let's create a space and we'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Manzano and Mr. Garibaldi.
You want us to take Brian's last question? I don't want him to go away with I have the time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, last question. I don't want to take everyone's time. I know class ends at about 2-ish. So, Brian, you are the last final question, and everyone, you could leave after that.
Oh, okay. My question was actually, I don't know if you actually answered it ahead of time because they kicked me out. I said students did well before the distance learning and now aren't so great. How is it going? Like me, I'm a student that used to be doing so great. I used to do like physical work was easy for me, and I used to get work done. But now it's more difficult for me, and it's easy for others, but for me it's harder. So like, how can that be like a way to avoid that? Because like I went to tutoring, and actually I am a tutor, but it's hard. There's like certain occasions where I'm like, I can't do this. I need to be there physically to learn this. Or
Yeah, I think you said it right at the beginning. There's some students who have done way better this way. There are quite a few. So some have there are some students that we've looked at in Manzano and the admin team, we talk about this. There's some students that were struggling when we were here, and they've made like a complete 180. So everyone is different, I think. I think we cannot control being here in the physical. Does that make sense? Like, that's not our choice. It's not like someone is trying to purposely keep people away. It's because of the situation we're in. You're not alone, Brian. You're not alone. Once again, I refer even to my children, my kindergartner. Imagine kindergarten, you're playing with blocks, you're playing with Play-Doh, you're learning the letters by doing these activities, you're going out to the monkey bars, and you're doing all that stuff. She's sitting on a chair next to my mom, her grandma, in a room on a computer. So everyone is being impacted by this. And the only thing I can share is this is temporary. Organization is big, it's key. Keeping contact and communication with others. And I think you're doing the right thing with some of the tutoring. That's also some support as well. And communicate with your teachers. You know, my daughter gets 5 hours of homework, 4 to 5 hours of homework a night. It is too much. I told the teachers here at HP, maximize the synchronous minutes, the time you're with your kids face to face, do most of the work there, minimize the asynchronous as best we can, right? But it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I think you have to be well organized. You try to stay on top of the assignments, use a Google Calendar, whatever it is to organize yourself. If you have a dry erase board at home or whatever, and just keep writing stuff down, and reach out to people to support, reach out to your teachers, reach out to us, right? Anything else you would add, Manzano?
No, I think you got it all, Mr. Garibaldi. I think well said.
All right. So I know it's 2 o'clock. Once again, we thank you guys for your time. I know you guys are busy with everything that's happening on campus, and we appreciate you taking time to, number one, going to their classes, number two, answering questions from students that I know this is a tough time for them, and it's good to hear from adults, and good from hear from people that have a little more information. I mean, it helps us calm ourselves down a little bit. But once again, thank you, and we appreciate it. Kids, I'll see you next week, and admin, we'll see you too.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Miss you, Bolin.
Miss you too, mister.
Have a good one.
Take care.
See ya.